Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen, Tom Wells, and Alex King here. Today is Friday, February the 8th, 2019. It's 8 a.m. in New York, 5 a.m. in Los Angeles, 1 p.m. in London, and Sydney, Australia is at 12 midnight. Wherever you are in the world, thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And we are glad that our live stream listeners are also starting to stream in. Hello to people who are saying hello as they stream in, which is a good thing. This is a Q&A. If you are listening to the live stream and you want to insert a question into the comments section, we will be glad to address it, bring it up, talk about it. And in the meantime, we're just going to kind of catch up because we haven't talked to Tom in a week. Tom, how's it going? I mean, I know that you said before the podcast got going that you haven't had a whole lot of winter, but it's pretty cold there right now, so I hope you're snuggled in.
Yeah, some of the coldest days of the whole year got down to -9 yesterday, which is really cold for this area. It doesn't happen that much anymore, but that was rare. And this morning it's -1. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. And we got 7 inches of snow, and so it feels like winter.
So you're finally getting the snow. I mean, that's what...
yeah, a little bit, yeah.
That's what Boulder, Colorado is known for, in Denver. Lots of snow in the area. So good, you're living up to your namesake. That's good.
Yeah. Whatever degree we can, we're doing our best.
Absolutely, even if the degrees are negative degrees, whatever it takes. And and of course, Alex has now become such a regular. I'm talking to her like 2 or 3 times a week now. So it's.
I know, right?
It's almost like, do I really need to catch up? But no, actually, you do have
all
to catch
Alex
up.
all the time.
It's all Alex all the time. That's right.
Getting pretty famous there, Alex.
I am.
What are you going to do with all that money that you make on the radio? Man.
I love it. In fact, it's interesting. You two were the ones who responded the best to that email I sent out. For listeners, I sent an email to all the co-hosts tossing out the idea about doing that fictional podcast idea, some sort of fictional series and so forth. And Alex and Tom gave like the strongest, like, yeah, okay, let's go. Let's do this. This is good. So I just wanted to make sure I acknowledged you guys.
It's interesting that when I was 8 years old, I was making radio shows in my...
I was too!
Really?
Yeah, with my best friend, yeah.
With my brother and sister. We made radio shows with a little cassette recorder.
Yeah,
and we would put sound effects in them and everything, and we would play like we were the bad guys and the good guys, and I remember doing voices and making sounds with little toy cars. Like the sound of the car driving away. You had these cars you could push and they would get going. They had a friction motor, and you'd push it on the ground and it'd go ring, ring, ring. That's why I put that up to the microphone. As when I would drove away, and I'd slam a book down as the door closing. It was totally fun. Wish I still had that.
That's cool. Making your own sound effects.
I lost my cassettes.
That's really good.
Did you?
Mine was more of it was a talk radio show, but we also played music in between. But we played our own songs. So, yeah, it was pretty cool. We were cool kids.
What kind of songs? You were playing songs that you wrote or what?
Yeah, songs that we wrote, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I like that. That's really good.
I just spent the last 45 minutes writing a song. Pretty fun.
It is fun.
First time I've done that in a while, so I'm excited.
Feels good, doesn't it?
Oh, God, it feels incredible. Especially when the song comes in a dream and it comes in a really wonderful way, and I feel like, the song is supposed to get out there. So it'll be fun to continue to work on it.
Yeah.
This morning, that's what I'll be doing for a while.
Well, actually,
that's good.
I mean, Alex and I were working earlier this week on this idea of starting a podcast, and we actually started fleshing out some characters on the show.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, which is kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, maybe it'll happen, man. That sounds good.
Yeah. Well, you got to start somewhere, right? I mean, you have to start with where you are.
That's right.
And
just let it flow.
It's funny, too, when you get started on a project like that. I mean, after that show, Alex, I had been thinking about the characters we started to kind of create outlines about and asked myself, okay, So why do they behave in the way they do? Okay, this person has this characteristic and that has that characteristic. So why do they behave the way they do? I know I'm playing it out in my head, right? So and they're becoming a little bit more real every time that I do that. Were you doing that too?
I was.
You were, yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about it with my therapist, and she was like, "Oh, you guys really delve deep into the characters." I was like, "Oh yeah."
Cool.
There was no stopping us. Yeah.
No.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we didn't really mess
That's
around.
great.
That's for sure. That's the other thing that occurs to me, because I mean, we have here just on the podcast alone, and you have, a lot of people have therapists and so forth. We have life coaches. We have all these people who have all this experience dealing with the kind of characters that we're creating for the show.
Exactly.
So we can make this real. I can talk to Tom and say, so Tom, we have this character who's going to do this, this, and this. Does that make sense? And Tom can say, well, yeah, except you probably want to have him do this, this, and this too. Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Right.
Cool. Let's do it.
In fact, if you want, Alex, you want to try to give a quick summary of what we came up with so far from what you remember?
Okay. So our main character so far is, her name is Nancy, but Nance for short. And she's a talent agent in LA. And she's book smart, but a little naive. She's recently divorced from her husband. I want to call him Mateo now, but originally his name was Brett.
Names
because I want him to be Hispanic. I don't know why.
That's all right.
That's cool.
Yeah. So they have 2 kids. What did we name the kids?
Lana and the other one it was going to be Brett and then Brett Jr., but obviously Brett Jr. doesn't work if his name is Mateo. So
yes, now it's Mateo Jr.
Oh, you can still have Richard.
No.
It'd just be weird.
Mateo Jr.
Mateo Jr.
Mateo Jr. But Mateo Sr. is an electrician who works for another company, but he wants to work for himself, but he doesn't want to take the risk in, taking the leap of the financial stability of the family and all that stuff. So what else did we come up with? I think that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
It takes a while to just do even that much. I mean, shows.
Yeah.
No wonder when you have a TV show or a radio show or Netflix or something where they have this whole thing worked out. No wonder they have so many script writers. No wonder they have so many people involved in the project, producers and executive producers and directors and all those stuff. It takes a lot of work to do this stuff.
I can't even imagine how it is on the SNL set. Like all those writers, there's 40 writers.
Yeah,
and they got to come up with new stuff every week. Like that's crazy.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of those guys, that's like what Conan O'Brien used to do. And And some of those other guys too, right, that are talk show hosts, they were writers for SNL and some of those programs.
Second City, yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Fallon was before he was on the show.
Right,
and then he
I wouldn't doubt that Stephen Colbert was some kind of writer because he's very talented.
I think he was a writer for what show is he on? No, he's got his own show right now. Yeah. I think he was a writer for The Daily Show before he got his own show.
Okay.
That could be.
I mean, you go back long enough, David Letterman was a writer before he became David Letterman. So,
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think you have to have that background to understand your job as a host. Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah. Well, it also helps, I think, that we all have the law of attraction background, because that's part of the reason we want to create this series is to include that element in it. My sister is a scriptwriter. I've been kind of cueing her in on what we're doing too, and she wants to be involved in some way. She you know how it is with Siri or one of the voice recorders where it takes your voice and translates it into text, and they don't always get it right. Well, law of attraction, when she tried to say it, came in as lava traction. so she
lava attraction.
So she was telling me that we have to find some way to help people understand what lava attraction really is, and I had to agree with it. But no,
you have to really enunciate when you're using those things.
Yeah, no kidding.
You do, yeah. I use it constantly, but I'm getting pretty good. I don't make near the mistakes I used to make it, but I have to speak like this every single time I record things. I talk very clearly.
It's probably good
and
for
even
us.
then.
I mean, we do a podcast. It's probably good for us to actually learn to enunciate that well. So Siri actually helps us, to do podcasts.
I think it might.
I think it
does.
I
learned it at a young age, how to enunciate. It was part of a class we had to take course. So.
You actually had a class in enunciation?
Yes.
Wow.
It wasn't like a whole class, but it was like we would take a couple of classes out in chorus and be like, okay, and today's enunciation day.
In chorus, you say?
In chorus, yes.
So you were a singer?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So it was part of your singing to learn to enunciate well.
Yes, you have to.
Well, that's
otherwise people don't know what you're singing.
This is true.
Especially we're singing in different languages. We were singing in Latin sometimes, so that's important.
Oh.
Hopefully you were all singing in the same language at the same time, too. We actually have our first question while we're meandering here. We haven't really talked about any topics in a law of attraction way, but we do have a law of attraction question. Sarah's saying, when did you guys discover law of attraction, and what made you want to learn more and give you that passion to help and teach others? It's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good question. Tom?
Now you're getting bossy, girl.
No. Back to you, Tom.
Okay. Well, I got lots of answers to that one. It just depends on how long you want to hear me talk.
I know. We should get you a timer and a bell.
Yeah, right. You should. You just bring a cowbell and a
like
drumstick.
45 seconds is up, Tom.
Yeah, right. You should have a little signal you give me, like you scratch your ear or something. Like, okay, stop.
I remember a number of years ago, before you tell your story, Tom, a number of years ago, I was involved, many, many years ago, I was involved with this very large singles club in Westport, Connecticut. And there was this big controversy because there was a question about whether board members had been siphoning funds or all this kind of stuff. And I had kind of gotten dragged into it and found myself all of a sudden running the organization because the president was under investigation and so forth. And I'm thinking, what am I doing here? Well, anyway, I'm sitting in front of this, the entire, assemblage of people who had come to this big meeting to deal with this big controversy going on. And people's, how when you have controversies, people were really hot about it. There was a lot of really big emotion built up. And I could tell I had to do exactly what you talked about, Alex. I had to have like a timer to make sure that nobody was going on too long and everyone would know. So I think the rule was actually 45 seconds or a minute or something like that. I'd give you the floor and you could go do your thing for 45 seconds. And this one person got up who was well known for being very, very controversial. And I was using an old-style timer that you would use in the kitchen to time food. So you turn it to the 5, and it would click, 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 and then go ding. Well, I was using that, and I gave him the floor, and I'm setting the timer, and as I pull it back, I pulled it back too far. He says his first word, and it goes ding. I said, no, I'm kidding. That was just, I didn't set it right, that's all.
Oh, that's funny.
I thought of that when you said that. So anyway, go ahead, Tom. Tell us how law of attraction, how you got into it, and what made you decide to, share with others.
Yeah. I got into it first in 2006, 2007 when some good friends of mine who are very beautiful, loving people said, you ought to check this out. And so I was on the road a lot then in the car, and they gave me a bunch of CDs. So I started listening, and that lasted for a while, and I bought the book, Ask It and It Is Given, and another one of the Abraham books. And for about 2 years on the road, on and off, because I'd be on the road 100 days a year, I'd be listening to it while I was driving, and on and off. And then eventually it just got to where I couldn't stand anymore to listen. It was just like hearing the same stuff over and over and over again, and I figured I understand all this stuff. I don't need to, I just can't stand to listen anymore. So I quit listening. And I don't know how much it changed my life back then, but come along, I got divorced in early 2011, and I went slowly into this kind of dark night of the soul because I had lost my marriage and my home and most of my savings and all this stuff had happened to me because of the divorce. And I was really trying to create a new business. I'd lost my business at the same time. And eventually, when I was at one of my lowest points, this friend of mine told me that I should go to this psychic fair that was happening here in Boulder. Ooh. And I just went one Saturday morning on a whim, and there was a room full of psychics, and there was only one woman who looked available over in the corner. So I walked over, and I had a session with her. And at the end of the session, she says, I want to tell you 3 things that you need to do. You need to go to the local psychic center and take classes because you need to develop that ability. You need to go do the conferences in matrix energetics, and you need to get into Abraham Hicks. And so she told me where to go to listen to videos that were coming in every week, live 3-hour feeds of the Abraham Hicks program. So I went to that the next Saturday, and right away, all the stuff I'd been struggling with for 3 years, this was now like 2014, all of my questions were answered. It was like everything in my heart and soul that I was struggling with, I would go in every line. I couldn't write fast enough. It was like answering all of my needs. It was amazing. Mm-hmm. And I thought, because I'd been studying shamanism and stuff, and I was just looking at Esther Hicks, and, I'd been into this stuff before, but now I was looking at her going, well, she's at least a shaman of some kind. She's definitely like channeling amazing stuff directly from source. And so then I dove into it for years, and I just did nothing but listen to Abraham. I pretty much quit reading every other book. I even got rid of a lot of other books I was into. I decided psychology didn't matter. No other philosophy mattered. I just jumped into it completely with both feet. And that's when I eventually got trained as a law of attraction coach, because I felt like this is so powerful that I want to help others discover what I've discovered, because I no longer had problems in my life. I had an answer for everything, which I got by listening to Abraham, So basically, I just sold my entire soul to the devil called Abraham, and
you're really helping us convince people this is not a cult.
Who said it's not a cult?
Oh, God.
Just because it comes from divine revelation doesn't mean it's not a cult.
Kool-Aid is available in the back of the amphitheater.
Kool-Aid is in the back of the amphitheater.
But no, it's been wonderful, and I'm still tweaking it and playing with it. I'm no longer like so fanatical. I now read psychology, and I listen to all kinds of other sources of information about life, But it definitely was wonderful to have that come along, and I love things that are channeled. I'm reading a book now called Talking with Angels that was channeled in 1943 through 3 women and a guy who were waiting for the Nazis to invade Hungary, and this entity started speaking through one of the young women, and this is an amazing book about those women asking a whole bunch of questions, and 3 of them went on to die in Auschwitz, and the one who lived wrote the book, Talking with Angels. Very powerful. So there's a lot of sources of beautiful inspiration that are out there.
Okay,
how about you, Alex? How did you get into it? And
I got into it. I was also on the road doing what was I doing? I was selling, well, not selling, but, teaching different hairstylists across the East Coast how to use certain products that my boss was selling. So I was teaching that. So I was doing that, and then I don't know who introduced her to The Secret, but she was like, I bought you a DVD, you gotta watch it. So she came over for dinner one night, and we watched the DVD, and at first, I was like 22 at the time, so I was like, okay, this is boring. Where's my wine? I'm bored. And I was like, how long until this DVD's over? But then, then we started listening while we were driving on the road. We started listening to different CDs in the car, and I heard something interesting about this woman who was looking for her significant other, and she did little things like she would never wear a ring on the engagement finger. She would never sleep on a certain side of the bed because she wanted to leave room for her future significant other. Yeah. I was like, that's very interesting. I was like, I'm going to start doing that. And I've done that ever since. Even when I wasn't paying attention to law of attraction anymore, I still would not sleep on the certain side of the bed. I was like, nope, my husband's coming. So,
and it worked for you too.
It apparently. Yeah. So I drifted away from it for a while, and then recently got back into it when, my life started falling back into place, and I was like, you know what? I've had a pretty good life. Things always work out for me, and that's just how law of attraction is for me. Law of attraction is things just always work out for me. So I started getting more into it, and then I met Walt, and then now I'm heavy into it. And I was like, you know what? You got to share your story because you never know who you're going to help. So that's how I decided I was going to get into it and start helping people.
That's very cool. And for me, it was 2007, November 2007 is when I first saw The Secret. I had been aware of, that was the first I heard of the term law of attraction. I had been aware of positive psychology, positive thinking, and so forth for many years, having read Napoleon Hill and having bought one of the Tony Robbins series and so forth. But when 2007 came along, I had gone out on my own. Louise and I married in 99. A couple of years later, we moved to Virginia. I had already gone out on my own to be a self-employed person, and I was building websites and doing all that stuff in the early stages of the web being built out. But by 2007, and I'd also had created a successful website selling long-distance services back when that was a thing. But, of course, that was gone now because people were trying to get cell phones and unlimited plans and so forth. So that was pretty much disappearing. And this web business that I built up was doing okay. But then comes the financial crisis. And, unfortunately, most of my clients had been nonprofit organizations that all disappeared because of the financial crisis. So my business just went...
2008?
2008, yeah. So, and I could see, and I'm kind of blessed or cursed, depending on your point of view, with having a lot of understanding about how economics works. So I was one of the few who understood that the crisis was coming well over a year before it arrived. And I was terrified because I didn't know what to do about it. Like, I knew it was coming, but how do you deal with the fact, because I could tell my business was going to disappear. And it did virtually, and then what was I going to do? It's bad enough when you lose your business, and you went through that, Tom. But it's even worse when you know in advance that it's going to come and there's nothing you can do about it. And you live with that for a year. It's like, oh, gee. What am I going to do? Which, of course, from a law of attraction perspective is guaranteeing you're going to have a really bad fall because all you're thinking about is, oh, my God, my business is falling apart. Well, 2007, November, saw The Secret and was intrigued by it. I had previously been exposed to some of the concepts surrounding it by my sister, who was very much into spiritual and mystical stuff and psychic phenomena and so forth. But I had always had a very analytical mind. And, I kind of kept it at arm's length. Yeah, oh, that's cool, sis. Great. Okay, fine. But when 2007 comes along and I'm dealing with all this, all of a sudden, it's like the old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Well, the teacher appeared when the student was really ready. The student was just like back against the wall, like I had no idea what to do. The movie shows up, and I still didn't know what to do after the movie had shown up, but I realized I'd seen a glimpse into what the possible solution was. That following January, I did my first experiment with trying to apply the law of attraction. I've told this story before about how I had a cyst on my finger that had been there for like 9-10 months. And the doctor had told me I had to get surgery in order to get it removed. And I said, well, that seems like a rather mild thing to try to eliminate. Let's see if I can eliminate that with the law of attraction. And, was bombarding it with gamma rays and everything, and nothing was making it go away. And then I finally took my mind off of it and decided that my finger looked perfectly healthy, and 2 weeks later it was gone. I said, okay, that's cool. That's cool. I like this, A couple months later, this is during the time when my father was dying, and he died a few months after that. And I was frustrated because I just had barely learned this stuff, and I wanted to be able to help him to heal, because he was actually, he had Parkinson's disease. And other than the Parkinson's, he was actually in very, very good health. He was at an advanced age, but he could have easily lived to 100. His brother, my uncle, is currently 102 going on 103. So it was definitely, it was definitely in the realm of possibility. But I couldn't help him, and I was so frustrated. I didn't know how to teach it to him. I didn't know how to help him turn his mind around. I didn't understand the concepts and principles. Well, shortly after that, a few years after that, I'm having a conversation with my wife, who had known that I was getting into this, and with my brother and sister-in-law. And I was explaining to them what I knew about it, how it worked. This was in April of 2012. And I suggested to them, why don't we try to do something together about this? And they were receptive, but they weren't, they weren't like jumping up and down like, yeah, let's do this right now. So didn't really know what to do about it. And then come September, I'm really feeling the urge to do something. So I decided, well, maybe I can start doing a podcast. And did the research to learn how to create a podcast. As people know, Louise and I did the first podcast on our wedding anniversary, September 26, 2012. The first 20 minutes didn't get recorded because I still didn't know how to use the technology. But I stuck with it. Louise did it with me for a while, but it wasn't really her big thing to do. So she kind of dropped out after a while. And she's been back periodically to fill in gaps and so forth. My brother and my sister-in-law did a couple of episodes with us as well, but it wasn't really their thing at that point. I ended up interviewing a lot of people over the next 2 or 3 months and then kind of stopped for a while. And then the following year, around the same time that I started, I was talking to my brother and sister-in-law again, and my sister-in-law in particular got interested and said, well, I'm willing to do it with you. And so we ended up being co-hosts for a while. And then she did it for about a year. My brother came in a few times. And then one of the early interviews I had been with Joel Elston, and my sister-in-law had to drop out, so I contacted Joel and said, remember that interview we did, about a year and a half ago? Would you be interested in being a co-host? He said, sure, and it just kind of turned into this thing. So here we are 6.5 years later, and I'm still doing the podcast, and I'm loving it. And the best part that has come out of it is, the question was about wanting to teach others and so forth. For me, the best part was I kept bringing on all these really expert people, co-hosts who are life coaches and therapists and so forth. And it's what they've taught me that's been the cool part. It's not so much, yes, I know we've been helpful to other people, but for me, it's what I learned out of being the co-host. And so now I'm at the point where I want to help, pass that along and help other people too. But, that's my story. That's how I got there.
Cool.
Yeah.
How about our guest? What's their story, her story?
Trying to see if there's any other stuff here. I don't see more. Well, I'm seeing some commentary from people who are watching it and sharing their own thoughts and their own stories. Actually, Suraj has a question. Let me see if I can bring this in here. Hold on a second. Get this to work properly. Okay. So Suraj is asking, did you guys go through any kind of particular training sessions to become a professional law of attraction coach? If yes, then I'd like to hear about that from you. And I've never been through any kind of coaching, but I know, Tom, you have. You've been through, Alex, you haven't done anything like that, have you? I don't think you have.
No.
No, but Tom has.
I'm just me.
Yeah, I've been through a number of courses, an actual curriculum through an academy that focuses on law of attraction. And then I continued to be on Friday calls for several years with a bunch of law of attraction coaches, one of whom was Cindy Chavez, who's one of your co-hosts. So I've known Cindy for well before this podcast started, because she's one of the most active coaches through this particular group of law of attraction coaches. And that's always cool to be on a call every Friday morning for an hour with a whole bunch of law of attraction coaches to see what they're experiencing with their clients. Because these are, real deal coaches who really work hard at it and have a lot. One of the coaches has a lot of celebrities and politicians for her clients, and she can never say who they are because a lot of them are quite famous. But it's pretty cool, to learn from other people like that. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun to get trained in it, but a lot of it is just listening to tons of Abraham has been the best training for me. And one way I got trained is I transcribed many I've probably transcribed several hundred Abraham segments from various places that I've heard them, and then I transcribe them onto documents on the computer. And in doing that, I internalize it a lot, so that it's really becomes my life philosophy in a much deeper way than just randomly hearing it. It's a great way to make it my own in a way,
That's good. I'm trying to think how to ask the question. When you were doing the coaching training, did you find that to be really worth doing? Was it just to get the certificate, or did you actually get good education out of that?
I got both. I thought that by the time I was getting that training, I felt like I knew everything they were teaching me. So
you knew it all.
It was like, I felt I was kind of ahead of what they were telling me. I always felt from the beginning of that training that I already know more than these guys know. Which, one of the trainers said to me at the very beginning, she says, "Are you going to do your own college?" I said, "What do you mean?" It's like, why would I? And I think because she picked up the fact that I was so into it that I was obsessed with it. I was constantly telling them, well, yeah, but Abraham said this and Abraham said that. And they go, well, yeah, okay, yeah. So I was kind of a know-it-all, which I've tended to be.
You're one of those.
Yeah. No, I'm not anymore. Now I'm really humble. I'm trying to be.
I love that.
Doesn't come easy.
Well, actually, that raises an interesting question.
I think it kind of defeats the purpose by saying that you're humble.
Well, that was the question I was going to raise. Joke. Is humility a good thing to have? That's the question I wanted to raise.
Yes.
No.
Real humility. When you're humble in front of the eyes of the Lord, so to speak, that in front of what's divine in the universe, you're awestruck by it. That's real humility. That wonder, right. You're just like, oh my God, life is so friggin' amazing. That's real humility. But when you hang your head and feel sad that you're, supposed to be subservient to somebody or something, that's not good. I don't think. That's not real humility.
You think so, Alex?
Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I was going to say on like a personality level, it's like a catch-22 because like in one way you want to be humble because that's what society says you're supposed to be, but at the same time, like you should be boasting about yourself. Like, be proud of who you are. I don't know. I don't like shying away from it.
There's a certain humility, like on this radio podcast, where I'm slowly trying to learn to really listen to others and not think that what I have to say, is the most important. And let others, and ask others, well, what do you think? When all I want to do is tell you, the answer to everything.
Oh, Tom.
That's humility, right?
Yeah, you're growing. It's good.
I'm growing. I'm going to learn.
I do think there is an important difference between being humble and being shy. And I say that as somebody who was shy for most of his life. I mean, I've mentioned it before. I'm still amazed that I do a podcast. Because when I was young, forget it. There was no way I was going to do something like this. I was too shy. Yeah. It was just not going to happen, When you're in that kind of space, it's a pretty negative space to be in. It's a very uncomfortable place. And I want to really differentiate between that and humility because I think humility often gets associated with that, but it's really quite different. Humility, I think, is more about appreciation. When true humility is just appreciating this wondrous stuff, whatever the wondrous stuff is that you're looking at, and just being awestruck by it. And when you're in that kind of a place, I don't know, maybe that's not what other people's definition of humility is, but it's mine. I have learned since the law of attraction kind of came into my life that I've begun to really appreciate just how miraculous this life is, just how amazing everything is that's around us. And I don't mean that I love everything that has happened in my life. There's parts of it I haven't liked at all, but overall, when you start studying this stuff, you become aware more of the synchronicities, the things that pop up that I previously would have said, oh, well, that's just coincidence. But you see enough of them, you say, my God, there's an awful lot of this coincidence going on. What's going on? And then you study that some more, and you look at it some more, and you realize this is a pretty remarkable place we live in, this world, this physical universe. I mean, you look at the patterns that show up in nature. You look at the variety of not just humans, but animals and life forms. You look at all, and part of it for me was the age-old question: is it just humans who are self-conscious, or are other beings, animals and so forth, also self-conscious? And I began to realize everything is conscious. Consciousness is everywhere. And then I think about that and I say, whoa, consciousness is in everything? Everywhere? It's like you're being watched all the time. But no, that's the spooky way.
By loving eyes, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just continue to be more and more amazed by this place that we're in. So I don't claim, I mean, I hear a lot of stories about what the non-physical realm is like. I don't claim to know that realm in the way that, some psychics do or whatever. I listen to what, I usually just, for the most part, repeat what they say. But I know that deep down, I believe that non-physical realm is a pretty cool place too. What's happened is that from that non-physical realm, a bunch of us, I don't know how big the bunch is, but a bunch of us have created this physical realm. And so this is like our playground.
Yeah.
It's our playground. And when I look at it that way, that to me is the source of humility. Like, whoa, this is really cool. How did we do this?
Yeah, right. How are we continuing to do it?
Yeah.
When I was studying Native Americans a lot and shamanism, and I started to realize, you get into animal medicine, which is how every animal has a message for us, has a teaching for us. And you realize that when Native Americans or any indigenous people lived with nature all the time, the way the earth was created so that we were actually in nature, we weren't just isolated inside of buildings all the time, that we were learning constantly from all the other beings, the different types of tree. Each tree would teach us a different lesson. Each animal, whether it was the raccoon or the squirrel or the deer or the bear, they would all teach us something because we were with them and we observed them, and they would come into our space and their consciousness that is just as vividly aware of what life is as we are, but each with their own particular message, each with their own particular understanding. And I feel, God, that's so cool, how what that must have been like, and because now, there's so much wisdom just in the little bit we know about animals, we can learn from them, and they still show up in our lives to whatever degree. I mean, even our cat and our dog can teach us so much. So, it's just, I wish we would begin to take advantage more and more of the earth's gifts to us and back off our agenda of being so, hell-bent for always changing everything, I mean, and, now we're wanting to go to the next, go to Mars and all that, which that's fine, but I mean, a lot of times I think we don't get how to live here, in this incredible place. We've forgotten a lot how awesome it really is.
Well, let me ask you a question.
We take it for granted.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, because the question came to my mind based on that last bit that you said. There's an old cliche that says the more things change, the more they remain the same. Do you think it's true?
I think that there's probably, the way it really is there's universal laws that govern the beauty of the universe and the way it's all unfolding. And so no one's getting away from those laws no matter what we do. So we can imagine that we're on different trajectories, and they can seem to us to be pretty shallow and pretty meaningless. And so we can go in all these directions, but ultimately we're going to come back to the source. Ultimately everything comes back because it's all being created from source. But it's almost like with free will we have the ability to literally, like that saying, you have enough rope to hang, you give that person enough rope to hang themselves. because they're foolish enough to blow their opportunity. And I think in a sense that's kind of what humans are always up against in these times we're in, is that we're foolish enough to ruin the planet. We're foolish enough to forget what love really is. We're foolish enough to forget the value of the family. We're foolish enough to quit talking to each other and start only relating to electronic instruments. Not that there's not beauty in everything. And so maybe everything will come full circle. No matter how far out there we seem, we're going to come back. But it could take generations and some of the things that seem so off track. And I think we could avoid having to be in misery as much as we are, as a society or as individuals. I think we create our own worst nightmares.
Well, then let me ask a follow-up. Abraham says you can't get it wrong and you'll never get it done. Do you think that's true?
Ooh.
Yeah, definitely. Or like Walt Thiessen says, you can only get it right. You can only get it right. And how does the rest of it go?
And the road goes on forever.
The road goes on forever. Yeah. I think that's true too.
I like that one better.
I like it because it flips it into the positive. That's why I like it that way. Whenever I hear a phrase expressed in the negative, I want to ask myself, okay, so what's the positive way to say that? Not that there's anything wrong with what the concept behind what they said. It's just I want to turn it around. That's all.
Yeah. Give it a little waltz spin.
The waltz spin. That's right.
Waltz spin. Yeah.
I feel better whenever I express something in the positive. You should. Some of the best things that we have as sayings and so forth are expressed in the negative. And when I turn them around and put them in the positive, it just feels cleaner and clearer. Mm-hmm. It makes more sense. Mm-hmm. It becomes part of my life in a bigger way. That's what I experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and it takes us more out of that paradigm that's been ingrained in our culture for quite a few years. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of years of looking to the dark side so strongly. Like so many of our movies and novels and things, they tell stories that are based so much on the darkness, being so powerful. And I think we sometimes overdo that. It's like it creates unnecessary misery in the world by how strongly we believe that misery exists. Yes, it exists, but we don't have to have it be almost like, put a crown on it and set it up on a throne, saying, it's like playing this Game of Thrones, let's give the darkness this huge, credit. The Game of Thrones.
The Game of Thrones.
Yeah, but you also forget in those movies and TV shows and such, light always wins.
Yeah, well, we like that game for sure, but boy, the suffering that goes on in playing the game is Walt and I have talked about that before. What if we wrote stories and things that were just not quite so dark? Would anybody have an interest in hearing them even? It's or do we just need that level of darkness? Yeah, well, you're a movie buff who watches endless amounts of movies, and you really know that world of drama, of the story, that story of there has to be this intense darkness before, and then when the light wins, it makes it so much more fun, right? Because you conquered
it just makes you feel good.
Because you conquered so much darkness,
Yes.
So, Alex, I got to follow up with you. Alex, is it true that I mean, it's true in the theater and the TV world, but is it true in real life that light always wins?
It depends on who you talk to.
Depends on which movie you watch.
I would say yes, but there are some people who are struggling right now that are saying dark is winning right now.
Yeah.
The key word is struggle.
In it.
Yeah, the key word is struggle. Yeah.
I have to say, I mean, I talked earlier about how I like having so many life coaches as my co-hosts, because I learned so much from them. I learned so much from all of my co-hosts, but especially I'm thinking right now about Joel Elston, who is the foremost advocate that I know of in favor of struggle. I mean,
in favor of struggle.
I'm
also in favor of struggle.
Are you?
I am.
Why do you like struggle? Before I even tell Joel's
I don't know. I don't know how many times I've said this, but everything happens for a reason and a season. So if you don't have struggle, you can't appreciate the joy. So I'm in favor for struggle. Yeah.
I'm in favor of it now too, much more than I was a few weeks ago. Because I've been getting a lot of messages. Even that book I'm reading called Talking with Angels, written in 1943 by these four women, three of who died in Auschwitz, and the angels that they channel really are clear about the value of struggle, you might say, of carrying a certain weight in life. And if you don't, you're not embodied. It's part of being in the 3D realm is to be dealing with the contrast. But if you deal with it and you embrace it, you come to know why it's there, and you come to realize that there's a reason to be in this 3D realm, and it involves carrying the weight of the task that we're sort of shouldering here. There's a beauty to it. There's a beauty to it all. It's like the butterfly emerging from the cocoon could never become the butterfly. People have tried to help the butterfly out of the cocoon, and those butterflies die. Because they have to struggle, just like probably the baby chick has to struggle to get out of the egg, or it won't survive. And so there is something about it. They said even the human embryo, the human baby when it's born, has a part in the birth process where it has to make an effort. They're finding that the baby, when it's coming out, doesn't do its part, it's not as healthy. It can die from not having made its effort to be born. Yeah. So there's something about struggle.
Yeah. The lessons you learn. Oh, sorry, go.
What did Joel Elston say?
No, go ahead. Go with Alex first. Go ahead, Alex.
Okay.
I was going to say the lessons you learn in strife, teach you a better lesson and give you a better education, I feel. So again, I'm here for the struggle.
That's good. Yeah. Alex Joel would agree with you. In fact, and you, Tom, he goes to an extra mile on it. He says that struggle is where we have our greatest platform for the most monumental growth that we experience in our lives. And he also differentiates between struggle and suffering. He makes it really clear that they are not the same thing. So while someone going through a struggle may feel like you described it very well earlier, I can tell you I'm going through a struggle. Things aren't really good at all. Things are pretty darn bad. But he points out when you're going through a struggle, it's up to you whether you are suffering in it. You don't have to suffer in order to struggle. And that's a really important point, I think. He tells a wonderful story about a guy who was on a plane with another guy, and the other guy was from Poland. And the first guy says to the Polish guy, "Oh wow, I admire you people so much because your history, you've had so many invaders, you've had so much stuff to go through. I mean, the stuff that you've suffered through has just been unbelievable." And the Polish guy bristles and says, "We never suffer. We've had to struggle through a lot, but we are very proud. We have never suffered." For him, it was a point of pride,
Yeah.
I imagine if you talk to people on a lot of sports teams, and they'll say, that we struggle like crazy to win, but we don't suffer. We enjoy the game, even if they lose and they're completely destroyed by the intensity they go through in the game, the hits they take, the coach being really mad at them. I mean, all kinds of different things. They make a huge mistake. They're way behind and they've got to struggle for, 3/4 of the game and they still lose. And yet they keep playing. And if you talk to each of those players, most of them will say, "I love this game. I don't care what I go through. I love this game. I don't care that I'm going to end up with brain problems when I'm in my later years. I'd rather play the game." I mean, it's like they actually make that choice, I'm sure, because they keep playing. They could leave. They could become real estate agents or
real estate agents. It's not the same thrill.
The same thrill.
Well, I guess a football fullback could be considered a real estate agent because he's trying to eat up the real estate, but not quite the same concept.
Wow.
Yeah, he's claiming his territory.
He is.
They get it and then they lose it, and then they get it, then they lose it.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's funny. So, okay, well, we're on the same page where struggle is concerned and suffering. So that's a good thing. I think that's actually an indication of what we each have learned in our own journeys about learning how the law of attraction works. One of the things I love about it is that it has such a positive side to it. And there is actually a burgeoning positive psychology movement that has been going on since, I think, the mid-'90s, roughly. Yeah. And it's been growing. And interestingly enough, the people in that field will go out of their way to make it clear that they're not into anything mystical, like any of this law of attraction BS. But nevertheless, what they teach is so much in alignment with what law of attraction teachers teach that it's almost indistinguishable. And so I just love the fact that there is that really positive side to it. I just love it so much. What was that, Tom?
And in quantum physics, I saw this article the other day how 15 of the top quantum physics pioneers who were the original discoverers of all these different aspects of quantum physics, this person had gone back and checked out what happened to each of those people as their lives progressed, and he said they all became mystics. They all became like very metaphysically, spiritually oriented because of what they learned through quantum physics about how the observer is creating reality. And they started more and more to see that not only was the universe this incredibly precisely organized, geometrically perfect experience, but that they were in awe of it. You know, that they were just completely blown out how it was their observations of the universe that were determining how they were seeing everything, you know, that it was all, they were intricately connected to it, and they became mystics because of it. And I want to actually get a hold of that article. I just saw a little bit I was, going through the internet one day, and I saw that, read a little blurb about it, but I didn't have the time then to read the article, but I wish I would have made a note of the article so I go back and read it. I'd be curious to see what they say. Because there's people like John Wheeler and David Bohm and these guys, who were the real pioneers of, well, look at Einstein. They quote Einstein constantly. Einstein said so many amazing things. Where did all that come from,
Yeah.
Came from a lot of his research, the things he learned about the universe.
It reminds me of a line from the old movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where they're up on the mountaintop and the ships are starting to come in, and there's this one brief pause, and one of the researchers turns to the other one and says, "Einstein was right." And the other researcher says, "Einstein was probably one of them."
Right. Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. But, this is just amazing stuff. The particular thing you mentioned, Tom, the observer phenomenon, that concept has stuck with me so firmly that I now look at things like, there are always these news articles about, all the things that are bad for you, and that, research has proven this and science has proven that, you want to stay away from red meat and global warming, and, just like this endless series of things that are just so bad for you that research has proven is so bad for you. And I keep thinking to myself, observer effect.
Yeah. Right.
And I just laugh at it because it occurs to me, these people who are very serious people who have studied hard, who have done a lot of research, they've really tried to apply themselves, still don't get that they're the ones creating the reality. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I was certainly one of those people. I mean, for years, I never considered the idea I was creating my own reality. Never occurred to me. But boy,
same.
When you wake up to it, it all of a sudden is an entirely different universe. It's an entirely different place to live. And it's a cool place to live.
And there's a balance. I mean, the main question I wanted to address today on the show, which, we didn't really go in that direction, but was going to be the question is, well, what's the balance between the fact of we create our own reality and the fact that that reality is being handed to us by an omnipotent, all-loving force called Source, and that what we're doing is we're putting our requests into the vortex, into the, you might say you're putting it into the field, but there's this magical field that's unfolding it all. That we are somehow we're the observer, observing it all and unfolding it all, and it's being unfolded for us by this divine, loving, omnipotent, all-powerful, well, I guess that's what omnipotent means. But, but, there's something going on here that is bigger than just saying, I create my reality, although that's a good thing to continue to explore, over and over again. How does the observer, how are we all one with that creative love, that creative power, that creative beauty? How are we all totally the vehicles of it? And we are it. In some real way, we are it. Like Abraham always says, the greater part of us is source. So that's a pretty big thing to be exploring, That's the cool thing about law of attraction, is that we're always on the frontier of that. We're like the pioneers of that, asking those questions and looking in our own lives every day to see, how do I create my own reality? And how do I be totally receptive? Like Abraham says, 100% of your job is to be receptive. So we're actually receiving at the same time as we are quote unquote creating. It's happening simultaneously.
The other thought that comes to my mind is that we have teachers such as Neville Goddard, who I respect immensely. I love the way he looks at a lot of stuff. But there's one little point that it still doesn't quite work for me. And I respect what he has to say, but nevertheless, I think he's kind of missed the boat. And I think a lot of people missed the boat on this. It's the claim that all creation is already done, that it's all been done, and now we are all in this realm where we are choosing. Like you said, we are selecting. I want to have this. I want to have that. It's all that kind of a process going on. And the only reason I even mentioned that is if it's all done, what they're really saying is this infinite number of possibilities of the way life could be laid out and the different kinds of creations that could be done, that's all completed by now. It's already been done. And I say to myself, that doesn't make sense. Because if it's infinite, there is no limit. There is no end to it.
Right.
It's constantly...
That's the point of infinite.
it just keeps going and going and going. It's just continuous.
Yeah.
Well, if it's continuous, how could it all be done?
Yeah.
And I say but I think that's cool. I think it's actually more expansive. I think it's more powerful than saying that it's all done, because that means we are still creating. We are still contributing. It's not just us being people who are requesting, saying, oh, okay, I request this to come and that come. It's more than that. We are creating as we go along.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot cooler.
Every second is brand new, What do you think, Alex?
I think this whole concept that we're discussing right now reminds me of the movie The Adjustment Bureau. Have you seen that movie?
I haven't.
No.
Okay, so it's basically it's kind of like what we're talking about, except it's like real life applications. So I guess in the future there's this company, or that you would call the universe, that chooses how things happen, like different, how you react to things, how different things happen, so they get, if something goes wrong, they get to go back and correct it. And they're like, no, that's not the decision you want to make. You have to fix it because we need this outcome to happen. So it's kind of like that. So I thought it was very interesting watching it, in my law of attraction mind. I was like, oh, this is great on a whole nother level, and nobody gets it.
What's it called again? The
Adjustment Bureau.
Oh, the Adjustment Bureau. Oh, I'll have to watch it.
Yeah. Matt Damon's in it, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I might have seen it. Oh, yeah.
I suspect there are some viewers like you who have noticed that connection and are probably looking at it very much the same way you do. Mm-hmm. But you're probably right. Most don't. Which is okay. Hey, this has been really good, though. I've liked this conversation, and this is one of the times where we've actually got a chance to talk about. I mean, at least I did, and I think you guys did too. How cool this place is! We live in a really cool place and a really cool time, and I like that. We don't give enough.
I like it. I'll stay a while.
Yeah, I think so. Stick around, right? See what happens next.
Yeah, put my feet up.
Absolutely. So thank you.
There's a lot of opportunity here.
Yeah, there is.
Mm-hmm.
There is.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing all that. Thank you to our listeners. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.